On today's episode, we have our very first remote guest. Joining us today is Michelle. We're going to be talking all about puppy development, kind of what to expect, and what to deal with and how to deal with a puppy when you get one, kind of stuff. So, first of all, welcome to the show, Michelle. Do you want to start off by introducing yourself, all about you, all about your dogs, and then we'll get into the topic.
Welcome to the Woofy Show, the ultimate dog lovers digest. Meet your hosts, Brian and Magda, two dog lovers ready to help you be the best dog parent, unravel the mysteries of canine behavior, and keep you updated on the latest trends in the dog world. This podcast has something for everyone. Get ready for heartwarming stories, expert advice, and a lot of laughs.
I am a puppy coach. I've been working with a community of puppy owners who are struggling through all of the challenges that puppyhood brings.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. More
a
than
lot
you
of challenges.
Think. Yes.
And I've been volunteering with this group for about 7 years now. Yeah, 7 years. And it started with my first puppy as an adult, because I've had puppies when I was growing up. Well, I raised my first puppy when I was 16, which you kind of think, well, you don't have the full responsibility because your parents help. So as an adult, I got my first dog. And it was a toddler.
Oh, yes.
Her name is Foxy. She's 7 years old. And she definitely gave me a run for my money. I grew up raising dachshunds, and I mean, dachshunds can be strong and independent, but usually they're like super cuddly, and they're more like cats than dogs sometimes. But tollers were just a completely new breed to me, and I had to learn what do I do with this puppy who all my normal usual tricks didn't work. So I got more into understanding what happens during puppyhood and understanding kind of why certain things weren't working or what could I do differently that would work. In the course of that time frame, after a lot of studying, I brought in a rescue. We had a dog that got abandoned in our neighborhood during COVID. So she's our COVID puppy. And she's 4 years old now, and her name is Zydeco, and she's a Shepherdor.
Okay, Shepherd Labrador? Okay.
Yeah, so we did an embark test, and she's like 2/3 German Shepherd and like 1/3 Labrador Retriever and just a tiny bit of Golden Retriever. And I didn't know that I was going to be able to deal with a German Shepherd, but she's actually quite wonderful. And and she's like my heart dog because she's just so sweet, and she's so polar opposite from tollers. So, and then last year we brought in a third toller. So I have Cha-Cha, and Cha-Cha is from Canada. She's Canadian bred. And Cha-Cha just turned 1 year old.
You've hit that stage.
And it's interesting because...
Which we'll get into.
Yeah. We will get into that, yeah. And it's funny because even though, Foxy and Cha-Cha are both tollers, they're definitely different in terms of their personalities. Okay. So... and then I decided, because so many people throughout the last 7 years have come to this community struggling with puppy blues and all of the different challenges, I decided to become a puppy coach to help people through the challenges.
I mean, that's so true. I think we did an episode about the puppy blues, and just to make people aware that they're real and everyone goes through them. It's just part of... puppyhood is part of having a puppy. You're going to go through it. Before we get into the different kind of stages and on puppy's life, 7 years is a long time to be a part of that community. Have you noticed, it's just random question, but have you noticed that methods have changed over 7 years? Because we've had a toller for just over 2. And so we don't know. I was 8 years old and we had a Shih Tzu. That's with zero training involved. So I have no experience before that. But have you noticed that actually over the 7 years that methods have changed or mentality has changed with raising a puppy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we in our community, we pride ourselves on being force and fear-free training. And a lot of that comes with understanding new things that come out from canine researchers. So we are constantly keeping up to date on research papers that are peer-reviewed that come through. And a great example of this is when I first started volunteering with this community, one of the methods for crate training was cry it out. And we would say, you just don't answer the cries. Like, they got to get used to being in the crate. And, you just got to ignore it and wait until they're quiet. And then you can open up the crate. Well, research has shown now that that is actually emotionally harmful and can lead to learned helplessness. So when we're kind of devising some of the guidelines that we have in the rules for people peer-to-peer giving advice, like, we don't allow that method to be recommended anymore. And that's a challenge, too, when you're dealing with a community who's like,
and everyone said in their ways, and it worked. I mean, I guess it worked for them, but just because it worked doesn't mean it's the best way.
And when you know better, you can do better. And so we're always constantly learning what are more humane ways that we can communicate and coexist with
That's interesting.
our dogs.
Yeah, I guess that's something I didn't think of. But the dog training world has changed a lot. I mean, we've seen it a little bit. Yeah, even like you said, the force-free and fear-free has been something that's kind of exploded lately, which is great. Definitely different. I mean, I've read books in the past that they're full of like really good information, but it's like, well, is that the best way to do it? But they're like written 15 years ago kind of thing. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's taken some time, but, we keep moving forward and finding ways to kind of cooperatively work with dogs.
So I guess let's get into the different, puppy stages of puppyhood. I don't know if you want to just kind of summarize them all first, if there are names for them, and then we can kind of dive deeper into different stages or different ages, or I don't know how you sort it out. So when you work with people.
So the different developmental stages. So it actually all starts while the mother is pregnant, and that's, the 63 days of gestation in the womb. And there are things that can affect puppies in their development stages while they're in development within the womb. And a lot of that can be shaped by the environment that a puppy is, that the pregnant mother is being raised in as well. And so the amount of stress that pregnant mother can have an effect on puppies. And this is one of the biggest reasons why it's so important to work with a reputable breeder that is ethical and treating their puppies really well, because how that mother is treated can affect how the offspring is later on in life as well. And so a lot of people don't think about that. But
that's so true.
Like,
I mean, I never thought about that, but it makes sense.
Part of development.
That does make sense, yeah.
After the puppies are born, we call that the neonatal stage, and that's from 0 to 2 weeks. And that's when they're influenced by their mother. They're starting to learn a sense of touch, of taste. They're spending a lot of time snuggled up, sleeping with their litter mates and nursing, and they're growing really rapidly. And so that's kind of just that.
Yes.
They're little potatoes at that point. Yeah. We all like seeing the little potato photos. So around 2 to 4 weeks, that's when they start taking their first steps. And that's when they're kind of transitioning from being in with their litter mates and with their mom and actually starting to explore the world. And that's kind of one of the big moments where they're learning to move their bodies, they're wagging their tail, and they may even start like vocalizing a little bit, and their eyes are open and their milk teeth are coming in. And and they're starting to hear things, and their sense of smell starts developing. And by the time that they're about 4 or 5 weeks, like that's when they really start seeing the world clearly. And so all of that time is typically with the breeder or with the mother dog if there are, certain circumstances. And like this is when they're starting to really start playing with their litter mates, and that play is so important to learning dog social skills. So as I grow older, starting about 3 weeks up until about 12 to 14 weeks, that is like the most critical time for puppies. It's what we call the critical socialization period. And most people will obtain their puppies from a breeder, typically around 8 weeks. And potentially even from a rescue, because there are puppies that get put in, pregnant mothers get put into rescues and they're in foster care during that time frame. So 8 weeks is typically the moment where people will bring their puppy home. And so they still have like a good breeder is going to give them that early socialization from weeks 3 to 8. And then the puppy owner is the one that needs to pick that up once they pick up the puppy and continue that until week 14 and beyond. But during that stage, like they're just absorbing everything, and we want to make all of these experiences and exposing. They're just so receptive to new things. And if we can do that in a positive way, then the hope is that they're going to not be neophobic or afraid of new things. They're going to have confidence. They're going to be less anxious overall, and ideally less aggressive if they are scared. So that's like one of the
and that's when,
moments.
I guess, a dog owner, that's where it starts, I guess, for a dog parent, dog owner kind of thing.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is, okay, you've got this 8-week puppy home. You're excited. We're going to do potty training because we don't want accidents in the house and everything. But the thing is that a puppy can't physically control their bladder or their bowel movements until at
the
least
amount of posts I've seen in communities where like my puppy's 9 weeks and they keep having accidents still, and it's like, you've had it for I hope a week. It takes months sometimes. Yeah, you're right. It's
I think the funny ones too, or sometimes I'll see people that are be like, my puppy is so great, like. They are just, they're fully potty trained, like the breeder potty trained them. And, they're just perfect. And I'm like, no, your puppy doesn't have control over that yet. And so that's why potty training can take so long, because when we're starting potty training, like part of it is like, oh, you need to go. Let's pick you up and get you outside or over to the appropriate potty place, because it doesn't matter whatever your preference is, and you have to like physically do that because they're not going to go on their own typically, and we have to repeat this and part of that is that through repetition we're hoping, this becomes a behavior. I know that I need to go outside when I need to go potty. When that 14 weeks come and they start having a bit of introspection of, I have to go. Okay, now you might start seeing a little bit of communication from the dog to say, I need to go, and then we continue that training on forward. But potty training can take up to 6 months. I think with Cha-Cha, like she was over 6 months and she still had a couple of accidents, and part of that was
and I think some people say like if your dog doesn't have an accident for 3 months like in a row, then you're pretty safe. But that's people are like, really, that long? It's like, if your dog goes 2 months, 2.5 and then have an accident, back to square one. Well, not really like back to square one. Don't if you're trying to teach your dog outside, but it's like that's kind of like it's after that period of time, okay, we think they've got it.
Right.
Yes.
Unless they have an illness, because that can happen too. Oh my goodness. Cha-Cha, like And I'm using her mostly as an example because she's so fresh in my mind, being that she's still a puppy. You know, like we were doing really great, and then she had some GI upset. And like Cha-Cha never really had like poop accidents. She only really had pee accidents in the house. But like with GI upset, I don't think she knew what to do. And I think like she scared herself with like the feeling, because like she just ran across the room and there's just like a trail of poop.
Yeah.
And I had to clean up.
Yeah, of
and
course.
I mean, it's not her fault. She, you know, she was sick, but like, you know, it's,
of course.
Accidents can
and I think
still
like something
happen.
I notice, at least with Maple, is a lot of times when you bring your puppy home and they have a diet change, and that was like and so we changed the diet, and it was just really bad diarrhea. It was disgusting. I'm not gonna lie. First dog, I've had this dog for a week, maybe less, just everywhere. And I was like, is this what I have to expect? And that's all it was. It was like a day or two of just really bad diarrhea. And, you know, we learned, we researched, we went on communities, we asked questions, and they're like, oh, it's because you changed your diet. And then it's like, and some people might think like, oh my God, like, do I have 3 months of this? No, well, I hope not. But yeah.
Well, and I live in a place where Giardia is pretty much everywhere because it's so wet. Like, we don't get rid of it. Like, a lot of other places might have like a period of time where it lives in the soil. Well, I remember with Foxy, she had a Giardia infection, and like that was rough. And a lot of puppy owners will get puppies that end up with either Giardia or roundworms, hookworms, like any parasite. And that can cause a lot of distress, which makes potty training very difficult because, you know, you got a sick puppy. They can't help it, you know? So, like, I'd have like weeks. And then sometimes even the medication for those things can make can give them GI upset as well. And so it can be very frustrating for a puppy owner going through this. And, you know, if there's a reinfection, for example, with Giardia, it's very common that you'll get reinfections. Like, that could be months and months of just frustration of having to deal with it. And it's really hard to go through sometimes.
So, other than obviously the potty training, which is a big one, what are some other things as, you know, a pet owner or something like that, or a new puppy parent? Those first, we'll say 4 weeks, bring them home. What are some of the really important things to like, you know, for them to be aware of, I guess? So
I would say that the biggest thing is to realize that you got to puppy proof your home. And kind of setting up a space that's large enough for them to like play in, but not whole access to the house. It makes it a lot easier to keep watch of them and also keep them safe. And then also keep, like, if you have any other animals, like keeping them separated, because you want interactions to be under direct supervision. And so having that all set up and having them there, and then honestly, like the biggest thing is play. Because play builds that bond and that trust. And, you know, a puppy is coming home, like their whole world has been turned upside down. And like some puppies, they're really good and they're like, oh, I instantly love you. And other puppies are like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. I don't know who you are. And it takes time for them to really kind of get to know you. And so I would say, like, the first week, you know, keep things relatively chill. Like,
I can't teach my dog to do a whole bunch of tricks in the first week. What? I'm kidding.
Nah, you want them to be able to settle in and relax, and you kind of get to know a new routine, and get to just feel more comfortable. There's new smells, there's new sounds. And so I tend to take that first week and just, you know, work on being at home and getting exposed to the things that are in the home, because socialization is about exposure to everyday life that the puppy is going to exist in. So, you know, they're going to need to hear you cooking in the kitchen. They're going to need to hear you go into the bathroom and taking a shower and all of those things. And then kind of just relaxing and playing, and they're going to be sleeping a lot. Like, that's the other thing. A lot of people don't realize they need to sleep like 18 to 20
that's
hours
crazy.
a day.
And I think when people realize that should be a sigh of relief, because people are like, my puppy won't shut, because they won't shut off. They won't. They'll just keep going. Well, maybe not all day, but it's like they need to go in their crate and have naps, or wherever you want to put them, or a small playpen area, whatever. And that's something that and it's hard because you're so excited because you have a puppy, especially if somebody has kids, the kids want to play with the puppy too. And we didn't do that well with Maple, and we learned that we she slept probably 12 hours to 16 hours, and because we were so excited and we wanted to play, and we're just like, we really got to bond. We really got to bond, instead of being like, play for 15 minutes, have a nap for an hour, 2 hours, play for 15 minutes, have another nap, and have a nap, go outside. That kind of stuff. So that was a big one. And I think it's good to hear you say that too. So anyone listening or watching can be like, let them sleep. It gives you peace of mind that now you can just sit down for a bit, because it's a lot of work. So.
Yeah, and that first week can be really rough too, because there's a lot of things that you have to do in that first week. Like, you need to get your puppy into the vet so that they can do their first wellness exam. And so you can go over that vaccine schedule with them. And then schedule the vaccine boosters and the additional wellness exams. And so, like, you're pretty much in and out of the vet as well for the first couple of months, dealing with that. And so the second week or so, that's kind of where you'll start seeing, like, the personalities start coming out a little bit. And you're still keeping things small, but you can maybe like introduce going out of the house, out on a walk, but you don't want to have paws hit the ground. So it's either carrying in a bag or a stroller or in your arms. But this helps start, and I'm not saying like you can go for like a full on like hike or anything. You could just sit outside your door on your, on your porch or front porch or your front steps, or just sit out on your front yard or anywhere and just sit there and just bring some treats. And we're just looking
just so
around at the neighborhood and listening to the things.
And I think that's a good, it is funny. We always see people, not always, but sometimes when you see, someone pushing a puppy around in like a stroller or something like that, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, it doesn't make sense until you realize, because I guess they shouldn't be walking on the ground. They're not fully vaccinated or whatever it is. So.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you don't want your puppy to ever be on the ground. Like, you want to bring people over to your house. So you'll have like friends over to meet your puppy, maybe like week 3 or 4, and expose them to people, all different kinds of people if you can.
Kids is a very important one. If you don't have kids, that was something that we didn't. We don't have kids, so. It took a while for her, and she was just like, what is this crazy little thing running at me? And she's fine now. We have neighbors who have kids. But it took her a while because we just didn't think about it at the time.
Yeah, I also had to borrow my neighbor's kids. So.
That is very important in the sense of kids are very hectic, and dogs can get very scared by their sudden movements.
Yeah, I mean, kids are unpredictable and they're loud and scary, and and so you might want to pick some older kids first and then kind of work your way down. I find that going to a park that has a playground and sitting from a distance to listen and watch kids is a great idea. But the idea is that you want to have the puppy in the home on the floor so that they're looking at people from the position that they're normally in. Because the thing with like being in a stroller or a backpack, while those are great for getting out and exposure to things, or even just carrying them, like sometimes if they're not exposed to things in their natural position, when they are in their natural position, it'll look different. True. And then they'll end up having a fear or anxiety about that.
Because if you're at something where you're almost at eye level with a human and then all of a sudden they're towering over top of you. I never thought about that. That's a very valid point. That's a very interesting.
Yeah, I got that from a friend of mine.
Oh, that's so cool. That makes total sense.
He was very adamant about that.
And everyone says, like, meet the dog at their level, which is good to do as well, just so you don't scare them. But don't always do that, because then they will always be used to, if you're not coming down to their level, they're going to be like, wow, what is this?
Yeah, I usually have my guests when they come over, like even when I have a puppy, like I just want them to ignore the puppy for a while at least.
But that's so hard. It's a puppy, and I don't want to ignore them. But you gotta look out for the best interests of your puppy. So, yeah.
Exactly. And you don't want to flood the puppy, because that's a bad experience. And we don't want puppies to have bad experience during their critical socialization period. So, when we branch out from that, then it's just a matter of continuously adding more experiences and exposure to different locations, environments, sounds, just to get them prepared for the world around them. And then, let's see, you get to about the teething time. Yeah. And that's always a fun
So when do you think
development
that
phase.
is, like, I know obviously different dogs are different, but, like, do you know approximately when that kind of happens, or?
Yeah, so that usually happens around 16 weeks or around like 3 months of age. It can vary depending on the breed, because larger breeds will take a little bit longer to develop than smaller breeds. So, but you may not even notice initially that they're losing teeth, or you might happen to come across like a little tiny piece of
and then panic
on the carpet or something like that. Right. But the thing that a lot of people do notice is that, oh, my dog is being more bitey right now, or my dog is starting to chew on things that it didn't chew on before, like my furniture or my shoes. And a lot of that chewing is so that way they can relieve the teething pain that they're having. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that teething isn't just about losing teeth, but it's also about the teeth coming in. And about not just about them finally coming in, because they'll come in, but also their face changes during that time frame. They're growing and development, so those teeth will be shifting, and the molars are like kind of getting into place. And so even beyond 6 months, they could still be experiencing some discomfort, like in their molars as they're starting to settle. And so there will still be a lot of, I want to chew on harder surfaces. So when we're kind of dealing with the teething puppy, initially we start with giving them things that are going to soothe the gums. So like a frozen washcloth that's been like doused in water, or a frozen rope toy that's been drenched in water. Carrots sometimes are, because they're nice and cool. I would stay away from ice cubes, because they can actually fracture teeth. But a lot of people will give ice cubes. It's just one of those things where, better safe than sorry. And then there's, of course, like teething toys that are out there as well that can be beneficial. Yeah. They're soft, and so they can like chew on them. But then as you're going through and they're losing teeth, you might have, like, I know we play, and then you're like, oh, tooth came out, and then you've got like a little bit of blood and from the tooth coming out. I mean, it's just like kids, when their teeth come out, you got a little bit of bleeding in the gums. But the thing is that a lot of puppies during that time frame, they're not getting their teeth brushed, and you might notice that their breath just is terrible. And it's funny, because when you first get your puppy, you remember that puppy smell. Everybody likes the puppy smell because it's so sweet and like, oh, it's so good. Yeah, by this teething time, you're like, no, thank you. It's because there's bacteria and stuff. And a lot of people wonder, like, oh, is my puppy sick? And no, not. It's just part of the normal process when you're teething. And, of course, you want to make sure that, like, it doesn't last. And if you have any concerns, obviously, go to a vet.
Of course,
and have the vet take a look. And so when they get kind of over that teething process as they continue to develop, they will want to chew on more harder things, so harder bones. And so if you've ever looked at those like puppy teething toys, they have different stages. Like they have a soft toy, and then it goes to a harder toy. And that's the reason why.
True. Yeah. So, the teething stage is a big one, and that one's hard, and that's when they're playing and just a bite, and they can hurt. Just because they're puppy teeth, they're small, pointy, sharp little things. They can hurt.
They are. The puppy teeth are like little tiny needles, and a lot of puppies don't have good bite inhibition. And we have to teach them that. And, bite inhibition and also bite pressure. And so, and that's a whole process. And so typically, especially if your dog is overtired, they're just going to not be able to do any of that. They will just be like Tasmanian devils. And those are the raptors we talk about, right? And that's when you know they need a nap. And, but yeah, I mean, I've gotten scratched.
But they're not doing it. They're not being aggressive. Yeah. And that's some people, my puppy's all of a sudden biting now. Are they being aggressive? And it's like, no, they don't know any better. Yeah.
Well, and puppies play by play biting. And that's okay with dogs because dog fur and skin is different than human skin. Our skin is a lot more fragile, and so we have to teach puppies how to play with humans. And that means go grab a toy. Oh, you need to grab a toy. Redirecting to that toy. This is how we play. We're teaching how to play. And then if they're not getting it, you just get up and go.
It's not cute. That's the thing. It might be all cute. But that's a bad habit to be teaching a puppy, because as you said, as they get lose their puppy teeth and get their adult teeth, that's not something you definitely don't want them biting on you then.
Well, no, but as they start to improve into their bite inhibition and bite pressure, a lot of adult dogs they know how hard they can bite to cause damage and whatnot. And playing with other dogs helps them understand that. And so that's another thing that's kind of important is that once you get your vaccinations, all complete, you want to start exposing your dog to other dogs in small play group sessions. Of course, there are some puppy play classes that you want to do. And that's a great place to expose your puppy to other dogs that are around the same age as your puppy. But you also want to expose them to adult dogs because adult dogs are going to be able to clearly communicate to them. And you want to expose them to adult dogs that you know and can trust are going to be good with puppies. Because we don't want
the
bad
adult dog to scare the puppies and now they have fear of dogs kind of thing. But
right, exactly. And so having a dog that's going to give appropriate corrections without kind of going overboard to an aggressive thing. Snapping, not so much, but there's calming signals that dogs will give each other that are on the lower end of that aggression ladder, and those are the things that we're looking for in trying to start getting puppy to have those social communication. It helps with bite inhibition. It also helps with them understanding how hard they're biting, and so my adult dogs, I can personal play with them, and when they put their teeth on my arm or my hand, they know that they're contacting me. I don't get marks from them. I don't get bit. I can feel their teeth, but it's not like a bite, and it's not.
Well, it depends on the dog. I know obviously you have tollers. Tollers do have soft mouths. They're just known to, because they're not meant to bite down. They're meant to fetch things and ducks technically and all of that stuff. So, and we noticed that too. And when, Maple, she's just super soft mouth, worst tug. She will never play tug because it's no, I'm not biting her. But we have dogs that come over and they're like, how? I'm literally you're hurting my arm. You have such a hard grip with this tug toy. It's how are you doing that?
Right.
So, and I think so. It depends on the breed and the puppy and all of that of what their limit is for.
I agree with
biting.
That.
So.
Yeah, but ultimately we don't want them biting humans.
Of course,
because that's
so.
Bad.
I guess after the teething stage, where we're getting into I guess a couple months old now. What are we looking at there?
Yeah, I mean we're about 6 months old by the time that teething starts to finish. And that's usually the moment where there's a brief period of my puppy's such a sweet angel. Everything's clicking and they're getting everything and you're going through training and you're doing great. Well,
I know it's coming.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
Adolescence, the hormones start kicking in, and that hormone that comes into their body from, puberty, that's actually changing their brain. And so a lot of people will find that their once sweet angels turn into quickly monsters, or they're testing boundaries. They're looking for independence. They might even have a little bit of regression because their brain's getting rewired.
Think of a teenager, like a human teenager. They're brats.
Exactly. Before we get into the adolescence, let me talk about fear phases real quick. So there are critical moments within the development process where puppies can have specific types of fears. And it coincides with their growth and development typically. And so those critical fear periods, there's like 3 of them throughout the lifetime of a puppy. And one is like right after the socialization period. And that can be just, you might notice all of a sudden my puppy is afraid of something that they weren't afraid of before. You're like, okay. So when those things happen, you want to just be very delicate about it. Don't force them to confront whatever it is that they're fearful of. Just continue to try and, be gentle about it. They'll get through that phase. And if they're still having issues with that, then we can work on that particular thing and help them not be afraid of it through desensitization and counter conditioning. So, with adolescence, there's another fear period during the adolescence time period that's kind of important to know. And part of that is, puppies in adolescence are wanting to be more independent, but they may have something where, again, they're out of the blue, they're afraid of something, but their flight instinct kicks in. And that's when you typically have a puppy who, when they're confronted with a thing that they're afraid of, they'll run. Okay. So.
Yeah, I guess it's not being like, what's wrong with my dog? And I think that's, like you said, once they get to that adolescent stage and their brain's changing and they're training, they think they knew or whatever, the behaviors, it's gone, they're fearful, they're running, which, again, you have to be careful of because don't leave the door open. They'll hear something and run away, or
don't leave the door open.
That didn't bother them last month doesn't mean that noise isn't going to bother them now, and they're going to panic.
And they may have been really good at recall training up until this point, and then all of a sudden they're not listening. Exactly. And so during that stage of adolescence, they might even chew more. Which is more of a sign of confidence that they have, especially if they're not spayed or neutered. And they might start showing some sexual behaviors. Now, puppies will mount no matter what age that they are. Like young puppies will mount. And typically, mounting isn't always sexual. But once they start getting into the moment where they start having hormones and everything, they're starting to notice other dogs and their hormones because they can smell it, right? And so if you haven't gotten your dog spayed or neutered for whatever reason, it's good to be mindful of the reactions that they may have if they come across a female that's in heat or another male. And if you have a female, that's one of the things you have to look for is the first heat that they're having.
Because that can come.
Cha-Cha has not had her first heat.
Maple was over a year old, actually, when she had her first heat. So it was, and I know they say sometimes around 8 or 9 months it could happen, but you just don't know. And she was, it was in I don't exactly remember when it was, but I won't get into that too.
we've been waiting mostly because we're delaying spay for one heat cycle. And that's because I want her to get the optimal
we did.
health.
We did wait at 2, actually.
And,
she actually just got spayed 3 weeks ago. Yeah, like literally 3 weeks ago. So it's been tough. But anyway.
I can imagine.
Yeah, carry on.
So, I was going to say, so basically, like, you kind of have to keep in mind all of these things because, like you said, it's like a teenager.
Yeah.
They want to go and do teenage things. They want to go and have, you know, their love stuff because that's what they're biologically
They want to slam the door and ignore you, even though you're, yeah.
Yes. We called Foxy our 16-year-old goth teenager because like she would just like she'd give you the cold shoulder and like, where did my puppy go?
So, I know, and I think that's something that people need to be aware of, that like cute, fluffy, because with the puppy hair, puppy fur, that's gone or going, whatever, and they have that. Do you find, especially I guess in the community, do you find that's where people struggle with the most? Like what stage? I know, is adolescent stage the part where a lot of people have questions of like, hey, I'm having this problem, how do I get over it? Or is it a lot more of like, oh, I've literally had my puppy for 1 week and they're not an angel yet,
I feel like it's split equally. I think that there are a lot of people that really struggle in the first couple of months of a puppy because it's hard. And then I think that there are a lot of people that struggle with adolescence because it's hard. But I think the struggle is for different reasons. So in a lot of people that struggle in the early times of having their puppy, a lot of that comes from you have a major change in your life. It's a good change. It might be a good change. It's a good stress. But it's still stressful. You're changing your routine. You've got this new puppy that's dependent on you. A lot of people might feel very frustrated with the fact that you're still learning about each other and you're trying to figure out communication between each other. And that could be very frustrating. Or, maybe the puppy isn't picking up things that you thought that they should. So there's expectations that might not be realistic. And then of course there's the fact that the puppy needs to go outside like every so often overnight.
Well, it's like exhaustion,
And we all, you're I remember with Foxy, I was a zombie.
I slept
for
on the
3
couch
months.
because we had her crate and playpen in like our living room because it was close enough to like get her outside instead of our bedroom. And so for those first couple nights, I was like on the couch or on the floor or whatever, just for the sake of like, so she knows I was there and she can like sense me. And it was terrible. But I loved it. I look back and it was like, oh, that was like, now that it's done, I look back and I was like, I miss it. There's actually a picture. I think I talked about this in one of the other episodes of me sitting. We had like a playpen area and then the crate and, a bed and toys in the playpen. And I was sitting against the wall, leaning like this, like completely exhausted, looking like I'm like trying to fall asleep, just like sitting next to this puppy who's just loving life, has no idea. But like, and I look at that and I was like, man, that was hard, but like, I miss it a little bit.
Yeah, if you remember me talking about the whole cry it out change that happened. So with Foxy, we did cry it out and it was torture. She just nighttime getting to sleep, like an hour crying. And looking back on that, like, I feel so bad about it but again, I was doing what I thought was the right thing at the time. And so, I mean, you have to give yourself some grace there. But yeah, like I was exhausted. My husband was exhausted. I think he wanted to even like,
that's like you said, the frustration and the regrets. This is like, do I really want, but it's just, it's only a small percentage of the puppy's life. Like, suck it up.
Right. So with adolescence, though, I feel that the challenges that come there are less about the stress from changes, because I mean you've been with this dog for 6 months, you're in a good rhythm. But part of it is I think that, there are behaviors that can pop up that can be really challenging that you may not have anticipated before. Your puppy might start being more reactive to other dogs, or they might start pulling on a leash when they didn't before. And it's that independent streak that you're trying to kind of sort of rail in. And that can be a challenge for people because it's that just small change that just happens, and getting through it, you can think that maybe you did something wrong. And so I think it's a lot of self-doubt at that point. But the reality is that no, your puppy is just an adolescent and they've got goldfish brain.
I like that saying. That's good.
You just have to deal with it.
And it's the unfortunate part, because that's from like what I hear. That's when a lot of people give up, unfortunately. It's that adolescent stage, and then they take them to the rescues. And it's just like, it's like you work hard for that first year and a half. You will have like the most perfect dog you've ever wanted after that. If you put in the work, of course.
Exactly.
You can't just do nothing.
Exactly.
Do you find that like kind of continuing or really focusing on like the repetition and the training is good, even if I know sometimes you do have to go backwards because they're not sitting, like to get through that, just keep being consistent with training. Like you said, cool. They used to be able to sit. They used to listen. Now they can't. Doesn't mean they're being stubborn. It just means that you have to go backwards a few steps.
So the way that I think about training is that training starts 100%. The first day you bring this dog home. And training isn't always necessarily formal obedience training. Training can just be understanding what is expected of them. Right now we're working on Cha-Cha settling in the evening instead of demand barking at us to play more, because we've already played like many times during the day.
Yeah,
and it's time for her to settle.
Off switch,
We have to teach them how to how to have an off switch and how to settle. And so, when it comes to things that backslide, like, you just have to kind of take a few steps back and realize that, like, okay, let's just hypothetically say it's potty training because it's super easy. And there are adolescents that do regress in potty training. And that can be very frustrating for people because they're like, you didn't have an accident for months and months and months. And what's going on? So, like, if Cha-Cha started having accidents in the house, then we'd have to go back to when we were puppy, like our younger puppy, where I take you out on a regular cadence. I do not rely on you to tell me when you need to go. We just go out on a regular schedule. And then I'm going to heavily reinforce when you do a successful potty outside. Because the other thing that happens during adolescence is that some people will stop reinforcing the things that their dog does. Like, if you train your dog and the expectation is before I open the door to go outside, you need to sit down and wait for me to release you to go outside. Good door manners. So they've been doing this for months now, right? But if I've stopped reinforcing that, and by reinforcement, I mean giving some sort of a reinforcer, whether it's a toy, whether it's food,
praise,
whether it's praise, anything. If I stop reinforcing that, then the behavior is going to decrease. And if it's continuously not reinforced, then you're going to end up with an extinction of that behavior. And so during adolescence, that's typically like when people start getting more complacent, and they'll start phasing out treats and phasing out reinforcement. And then they find themselves in a position where the behavior is no longer habitual. And
I think the biggest one with that, I see with a lot of people, the example I see the most is when dogs like jump up on you. And they're just like, oh, they just do that. And like, I cannot stand, oh, they just jump up on you. Oh, we're trying to stop it, but you're not trying to stop it. It's just like, that's just what they do. That's just what my dog does. They're just excited. And it's like, no.
And a pro tip is that if you do have a puppy or a dog that jumps up on guests, keep a bowl of treats by your door for your guest to get. And when your guest comes in, have them toss some treats onto the floor.
That's where the reward
away
is.
from them.
But treats don't do anything. It's like you said, whether it's a toy, whether it's praise. But a lot of dogs just like
that's
being
reinforcing.
Just touch is a reward for them. So if they're jumping up and you're like, oh, patting their head, it's like you've just rewarded that behavior.
Right.
Anyway, it goes back to the whole adolescence and how as puppies, they were always good mannered, all of that. And then you're just like, okay, they got it. It's done. But it's just like us. If you didn't do something for years, you'd probably forget. You know, if you practice something for a month and then didn't practice again for 4 years, you wouldn't remember. Yeah, like
exactly. I could tell you. So, video games. I haven't played Elden Ring in forever, and the new expansion came out.
Yeah.
I don't remember how to play. I have to figure that out again. And it's the same thing with any other behavior that we have. If we don't practice it and we don't have intention in practicing it and it's not reinforced, then we're not, it's going to go away. And so throughout our lives, and we do this without even thinking, like with human beings, it doesn't matter what animal it is. If you reinforcing a behavior, the more that you reinforce it, the more that behavior is going to increase. If you stop reinforcing it, then the behavior is going to decrease because there's no reason to do the behavior.
Reinforcing and continuing with that training, again, doesn't have to be formal training, is more important during that adolescence stage?
I think that it really depends on the dog. Because you don't want to of course, be a drill master during those time frames, and that can backfire as well. And so I think a part of it is understanding when it's appropriate. And I guess
once you learn how your dog learns as well, so you can do it through play, not just like you said, running drills of like do all of these commands in a row or all of these cues, then you get rewarded. It's like, no, have fun with it now. You've bonded.
While training can happen every day in a different variety of ways, when it comes to formal training, I'd say for my dogs, we do maybe twice a week. Yeah. I'm doing agility with Cha-Cha, so that's super fun. And a lot of that's to boost her confidence because she has stranger danger. And then with my other two dogs, we do a lot of
we're the same. We don't do it. We do it not every single day, but it's the same thing. Yeah, a few days a week we'll just have, especially if it's like raining outside and stuff like that. Not that we only do it inside, but you're right. It's always good too. And we just go back, we'll redo the basics of sit. Cool, you're going to get rewarded. Because even though they know how to do it, you still have to every once in a while reward that and reinforce the most basic stuff.
And tricks are a great way to do basic obedience work. And then also have it be fun, because I find that my dogs find tricks to be
and I guess, again, it also depends on the dog. But most dogs would really enjoy it. It's so much fun. You can tell they love it. They're ready to do the next thing. And sometimes I know with Maple, if you're trying to teach something new and she hasn't understood it yet, she'll just do all the other tricks that she knows, hoping that she gets a reward. She'll be like, okay, I'm going to spin. I'm going to lie down. I'm going to roll over. It's I didn't ask for any of those ones, but she can't. It's okay, I'll reward you let's go back to something basic. Reward you. Let's start. So you're right. That's awesome.
Exactly. And that's exactly what you would do in terms of adolescence, where it's okay, you're flailing. Let's stop flailing, and I'm going to give you something easy, because we want to build back up.
Well, lower the expectations.
That confidence.
It's just lower your expectations for a little bit, but don't stop. And I think, again, a lot of people give up. And it's if you would have just kept going, your dog, Maple's 2 now, and she's just so on the ball and so well behaved in the sense of, paying attention. But was it easy? No. Some days it was not.
I think a lot of people just get to a point where they don't know what to do. And we get a lot of people that come to the support community that are just we've had a lot of people come with legitimate mental health crisis. And in that, and sometimes we do have to say that, okay, what is best for the dog and what is best for the person? Because there are some mismatches that can happen, and ultimately we want everyone, both human beings in the household and the dogs, to be safe and have everybody have the best quality of life that they can have as well. And so I would say that if those rehomings were the only rehomings that we had, we would have less animals in shelters. And in those cases, I feel like rehoming can be a good choice if the person is not fit for the dog. But I also feel that there's a lot of people out there who would benefit from working with a professional, whether it's one-on-one private sessions or even if they're doing group classes. But working with a one-on-one private coach or a trainer, that can help them get through those challenges. And I think a lot of people can get scared of doing that, not just financially, but I think a lot of people, they feel like they're going to get judged or that they're going to be shamed because they weren't able to do it. And that's just not the case. Most of us in this profession, we want to help people.
Do you find that going to these communities to ask for help or advice or input is a good idea, or is it not because you get so many different responses? I know it's...
So it can be hit or miss. It really depends on the community. And so there are good communities out there and there are less good communities. I wouldn't say that there's bad communities necessarily. Mostly because generally what I see in a lot of these communities across various different platforms is that you have people that want to help other people, and sometimes getting multiple suggestions for how to approach a situation can be beneficial for the person to go, okay, I can try this one thing for a little bit and see if that works. Try it for 2 weeks, see if it works. Okay, that didn't work. I'm going to try the next thing that got suggested. Try that for 2 weeks and see what happens with that. And so I think that there is some good that can come from going there, but more importantly, there's solidarity. There's a sense of being seen, being and I think it's understood. And I think that that's
or
really
realizing
what comes
that other
out of
people have gone through exactly what you've gone through, and that's just normal.
Yeah.
And again, it's at the start, it's like puppy blues. It's a normal thing. Everyone goes through that. So it is that peace of mind of being like, oh, my dog did the exact same thing. This is what worked for us. Now, again, like you said, that doesn't mean it will work for you. Try it.
Yes. And it also depends on who's running the group. What are the contracts or the social rules that have been agreed upon for that group? Because, if you have just a Wild West, anybody can say anything. And so I think that it's important to kind of consider, what kind of support group do you want to be in? Because some people don't like rules.
Well, and it's just use
that's okay.
common sense too. If you ask a question and someone gives you an answer, and I don't like that, just don't listen to that kind of thing. Just ignore that. And
so while I do think that there's good things that can come out of that, but also I think that there has to be an understanding that anybody can say anything on the internet. And so it's very important for you to be able to discriminate between good information and bad information. And that can be really hard because there's a lot of, and I mean, that goes for even looking for trainers, because there's a lot of trainers out there that can use, tools or training methods that are not necessarily
outdated,
humane.
Yeah.
They are outdated, exactly. Or maybe you have a family member that has outdated training methods, and how do you deal with that? How much changed in the last 7 years? There's so many different variables.
Exactly. Just because a friend of yours has a 10-year-old dog, what they did 9 years ago doesn't really make... I mean, it could work, but there's better ways,
Exactly. And so I think that it's great to have that support system and to have people that understand what you're going through from a human, emotional, mental health standpoint. But I think that making sure that you're working with a professional who has a good understanding of canine behavior and of how, and that's good at teaching you how to understand those concepts and how to understand how the theories of learning, because that's important to understand if you're going to train your dog. We often say that most dog trainers are not really training dogs.
I was about to say that. If they're not willing to teach you because they're worried you're never going to hire them again, then they don't care about you and your dog. They just want money kind of thing. So that's very true. Yeah.
Right. So I think that combined, it's like the perfect batch. If you work with a professional that can help you through those challenges, you're less likely to be so stressed out and frustrated. And then pair that with having a good support network, and that can be, a puppy support group. It could be friends. It could be family. Whoever you feel gives you support and can provide you with, an ear to vent at, or, just like totally understand what you're going through because I'm gone through the same thing type of thing, or even somebody to come in and give you a break. Because that's another thing that a lot of people don't get is like, oh, I got a puppy. I can never, take a day to myself anymore. And it's like, sometimes you do need to ask for help. Have a friend or have a family member come and watch your puppy while you go have a spa day, go take a nap, go play a sport,
of course.
do something,
Yes.
Go on a date.
There's more to life than your dog. No, there isn't. I take that back.
I want to say, with Foxy, the first time that my husband and I had time to ourselves was 6 months.
I think it was even longer for us. I know exactly what you mean. It was crazy. It was just like, this is the first time. And it felt so weird, though, to go somewhere without
very
Maple.
weird.
It's I don't know what to do.
Yeah, we took a weekend trip to Portland and we boarded Foxy. And I remember waking up in the morning because remember with puppies, you're waking up at 6:30 in the morning, even earlier sometimes, and 6:30 every morning. And I mean, I still wake up at 6:30 to this day. I never was a morning person until I had dogs.
Yeah.
And now I'm a morning person. But I woke up in Portland at the hotel and I'm just like, this is weird. What time is it? 6:30? Yeah. I can sleep in? What is this?
You're right. And it does help. But then it also makes you realize of that bond that you have of oh my God, I miss my dog. I wish he or he was here to enjoy this walk with us or whatever. I know you can't take them everywhere, but sometimes it does. It makes you.
That's when you pull out your phone and you go, send me pictures, or you look at their webcam.
Or you look at the thousands of pictures you already have on your phone because you should. Anyway, we're getting. That's great. These are great stories. But we'll kind of wrap it up a little bit. But just before we do, what are some common mistakes that you've seen based on the communities you're in or people you've worked with that people make with their puppies? What are the common mistakes and how are these how can they be avoided for a new puppy parent watching this?
So one of the most common mistakes that's made are when somebody says, I can't take my puppy out of my house ever until it's fully vaccinated. Yes. So the puppy ends up staying at home until 16 weeks, never seeing the outside, never going outside, never being exposed to outside. They're just inside the whole time, not even going outside to potty. They're using potty pads inside because this happens very frequently, especially for people who live in apartments. And that they miss out on the socialization. So when they start going outside, they're scared, they're, anxious, and that can lead to a lot of behavior issues.
Okay. I guess that is something, and I know it is a fear thing of I don't want my dog to get sick or the parvovirus. And fair enough, that's valid fears, but do it safely.
I mean, yeah, exactly. We can still socialize safely. We can still expose puppy to things without exposing them to illness like parvo or distemper.
That's interesting.
Sure.
That's a good one for anyone that didn't know that. That just, like the stroller we said, the backpack carry. Puppies are light and small for the most part, depending on what type of dog you have. Yeah.
Depends.
Any other ones that you can think of?
So another big mistake that people have is flooding their dog. And what I mean by this is that, especially during socialization, they're like, oh, I got to socialize. So I'm going to bring my dog to all of these places for an X amount of time. And I'm going to take him to the county fair or, someplace that's super loud and busy. And everybody's going to want to descend upon the puppy and give him pets and touch them and blah, blah, blah. And like the puppy is just like, I can't leave. I can't do anything. Yeah. What do I do? And that ends up flooding them and becoming a negative experience to the point that they might be afraid of people approaching them, or it does the opposite. It's just too much. So we have to expose them. But we have to be very careful about how we expose them.
Fair enough. Yeah, Maple had that. We did puppy classes, actually. And so when they get time to play together for a little bit, she was terrified. She was, like, hidden in the corner because there was, like, 15, 16 dogs.
That was
and
Cha-Cha.
they were all playing, and she would just keep running away. And we were, like, so, like, nervous and scared and sad. And we're like, what's wrong with her? And she, luckily, we were in the classes, and we just kept going. We paid a lot of money for them, and we did power through it, but now looking back, we probably shouldn't have powered through it. She eventually kind of came out of her shell by towards the end of the classes. But once we learned, we didn't know what flooding was. This was our first dog. And we're just like, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Maybe we should have found some people that had a puppy and just be like, hey, do you want to just have like a one-on-one, little 5-minute play session? So
We had a similar situation with Cha-Cha. When we went to our puppy socialization class, she ended up in that first fear phase. And she was terrified of the other dogs. And I felt so bad. And so, we've had to work by doing smaller group classes, doing basic obedience with a lot of distance in between us and other dogs. And slowly but surely, she's starting to build her confidence and starting to realize that these other dogs are not scary. And she started to initiate play with other dogs, which makes me happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we just got to keep working on it. And because, at home, she's just so funny. And just such a, her personality is hysterical. But when she's out in public at the dog classes or whatever, she's so meek and small. And that's not her.
And it's not nice to see. So you just feel sad and you're just like, I want you to have fun. I want you to be out here enjoying yourself, and you're not. But it's like you said, what can we do? What can we work on? Who can we talk to? Kind of thing of.
Yeah, so group classes are a great way, smaller group classes are a great way to expose a dog to other dogs and to help build them confidence, because you're doing either basic obedience or that's one of the reasons why we're doing agility, is because we want to boost her confidence and have fun. And most dogs love agility, because who doesn't love running
and
around?
Jumping and all of that stuff. But it's true, and I think an important thing is, even though, say this is your second or third dog and you know all the obedience stuff and you can just train it at home, but doing it in that class setting when other puppies are around, fine, they're not playing.
Absolutely.
They're fully concentrating on you. It's obedience class, not playtime. But
don't get me wrong. You can still expose your dog to other dogs outside of taking a group class. You could go and do, some work outside of a park where other dogs are, or you could be at a dog park, but don't go in the dog park if your dog's not dog social. But you could be a distance from the dog park where your dog can watch other dogs and realize,
they're fine.
Dogs, they're having fun. I want to have fun, So, you can do that, but it's a lot easier and a lot safer to do that in a group class, because the group class is a controlled environment. people have control over their dogs.
Yes.
We hope in most group classes. And so you can set up the experience to be positive and try to negate the
of
negative
course. And you don't know, like you said, everything for the most part should be under control, and you're not going to have a dog that's trying to lunge. Someone's walking their dog not too far away, and their dog's lunging at your dog, and they're like, "What's going on? I'm scared." That's awesome. So I guess almost wrap it up. What if you have like one piece of advice that you can give a new puppy parent that's struggling with their puppy? Doesn't matter whether they're 8 weeks old, 10 weeks old, 8 months. What would that be?
Hire a professional dog trainer to work with.
Yeah.
Don't. I mean, that's the thing. If you really are having some struggles, hiring somebody who is, especially somebody who specializes in puppies, because not all dog trainers will work with puppies. But if you hire somebody who specializes in puppies, they can help get you through those challenges. And hopefully in less time than if you were to struggle on your own. And then also give you ideas that you may not have thought about. No,
that's a very valid point. Training is huge. Like with Maple, we're still doing training classes. Like it never stops. And it's, cool. You can watch YouTube videos and you can read forums and blog posts and you can ask for help. But having that personalized, like you said, that personalized one that's working directly with you and your dog, and you can ask questions. I think that's the most important thing when you work with a professional is you can't ask questions when you're watching a YouTube video. You can't ask questions. Well, you can on groups in communities, but as we said, you don't know what you're going to get for answers. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
So, that was awesome. I learned some stuff. I've gone through the puppyhood. We're actually going to be getting a second puppy in the winter this year. We almost got one. We were about to get one literally in like 3 weeks, so summer 2024, depending on when you're watching or listening to this. But thought let's enjoy our summer this year. We'll get one in the winter. I've already learned some stuff that I didn't know. So thank you for everything you've kind of shared with me and the audience. It was awesome. Where can people find more about you? Where can people work with you? Obviously, you are a professional that works with puppies. So how can they find out more about you if they wanted to talk to you, ask questions, or work with you?
Yeah, so you can find more about me on my website at readypupgo.biz. And I work in person with folks that live in my area, but I also work remotely with anyone in North America.
What area do you live in, if you don't mind? You don't have to go too exact. Okay.
I'm in Washington State. So I'm outside the Seattle area.
And then do you have social medias as well that can... If you use them, I don't know.
I'm on Instagram. I have been, so I just spun up my Instagram and Facebook. I've been dumping out content, and that's that's been fun. So I am on Instagram and Facebook. Just Ready Pup Go is the tag, and so feel free to find me and follow me, and I will continue to post good snippets of information. Right now I'm doing a myth-busting series.
And there's always interesting tips you can get on social. Again, not all of them are like, that was a bit, I don't know, but that's always good it's always good to follow dog trainers. That's one thing that's very important, to follow dog trainers, because you'll learn things you didn't think you needed to know just by scrolling, so.
Exactly. I still follow dog trainers and learn every day.
Well, again, thank you once again for being on the show. Thank you for being our first remote guest. That's amazing. We can't wait to do more of these with other people. And
it was a pleasure.
That's it. Everyone, thanks for watching. Make sure you follow Michelle. Check out her website. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're on other audio platforms. It's just automatically uploaded. It doesn't matter where. And anyone that's getting a puppy, share this episode with, because these are some tips they need to know. This is some information that I wish we knew that before we got Maple. This would have made things a lot easier. But no, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you again. And bye for now, everyone.